Yeah, guys, before we bring in our guest, today is brought to you by Epicor. Every team knows the value of hard work, of taking pride in what you build, and in practicing every detail to get the best results. But no one player, no matter how amazing, can do it all alone. Working together makes getting the win easier. At Epicor, the All-Stars are hardworking manufacturers and distributors who create and deliver all the things we need, from aerospace to electrical to medical devices. And they handle your supply chains like nobody else. From small businesses with big dreams and to growing enterprises with global vision, we'll equip you with the right tools to move forward, think ahead, and lead the way. Because as the clock ticks down, you need to make the most of every hardworking minute. Easier doesn't cut corners, easier finds the lane. You can discover success at www.easierwithepicor.com. That's www.easierwithepicor.com.
All right, Ben Solak is with us from ESPN. There he is. Ben, thank you for joining us. How are you today?
I'm well, man. How you been?
We're great and happy to have you with us. I think we're all ready for the draft to happen, right? I think.
No, you're not. You're not enjoying the 35th Shedeur Sanders conversation of the year. Wonder where he goes.
No,
oh man, quarterbacks are exciting. You not like it?
I'm kind of done with it. Ben. No, I think we all feel it this time of year. Everybody's done with the draft. I mean, it's exciting. The unknown is exciting, but now we just want it to happen. I'd like to see the NFL draft moved up a couple of weeks, but you know they like us. They like us just talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. Anyway,
yeah. When the draft, mock draft breakdowns outperform NBA games on TV, it ain't gonna get moved. That's the nature of it. It allows the NFL to just own so much of the television schedule. So yeah, I think my wife is sick and tired of hearing I got to go watch prospects for like the 95th day in a row. She probably thinks I'm just lying to avoid her at this point. It's a long process.
I think the TV show that they have for the schedule outdoes the NBA and Major League Baseball. I mean, that's how sick we are, really. We're all insane. In a great way, I think. I hope. But we're all insane.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ben, I'm curious your take. Let's start with Joe Flacco. If fans here, you'd think that the Browns just signed, Patrick Mahomes, because we're so excited. Everybody's super pumped for Joe Flacco. How big a difference do you think he makes in terms of wins and losses for one more season?
Yeah, I mean, Flacco's the only passable quarterback play the Browns fandom has seen in 3 seasons it's been now, or 2 or 3. It's Flacco's not a needle mover. I understand that he had the good end run 2 seasons ago. They had the good end of the season, but in general, this is not an impactful passer at this stage in his career. He just throws up a lot of prayers, a lot of 50-50 balls. He's willing to take the deep shots, which is it's good for variance. Okay, if we connect on a couple of these, we'll score points quickly. And so he has a skill set that can keep you afloat, but this isn't going to change an offense. This isn't going to save a system. This isn't going to, make the Browns look like it suddenly works, especially with the receiving core that now lacks Amari Cooper. Obviously, Jerry Jeudy had himself a nice season, but Judy's a lot better kind of in the separation game, not so much in the deep passing game. And so Flacco, to me, does not register. It does not change my perspective on the Browns. He's certainly better than starting Kenny Pickett. And Kenny, like that, it's clearly an improvement. But if he plays, he's the 30th, 29th best quarterback that's going to be playing on a given Sunday. So you can't use that as a way to elevate the Browns' outlook in 25. You still need to go and get yourself a rookie quarterback.
Cam Ward goes at 1. Let's assume you're picking at 2. Travis Hunter for you or no?
Yeah, the whole way. Since the first time I put on Travis Hunter film, I was on Travis Hunter 1 to the Titans because I think he's that caliber of a prospect, right? We throw the word generational around way too often. This is one of the times you actually get to use it, right? The kid can play both positions. He moves unbelievably. You cannot teach the way that he makes tackles miss, the way that he makes tackles on the defense side of the ball, the way he addresses the football in the air, the toughness, the catch radius, all that in a bag of chips. And I also think he is very justified and very correct in his assessment of his ability to play both sides of the ball. When he says if I don't play both sides, I won't play. I think that's mostly just kind of a young man puffing his chest out. I don't take that too literally. But when he talks about, listen, I've been doing this my entire college career. I kind of know how to prepare, how to work around the margins. I believe him. That's a compelling case to me. When he talks about, hey, I have enough conditioning and enough energy to play over 100 snaps. I agree with him on one Sunday. I don't think that's probably true for 17 Sundays over the course of a season. But on one Sunday, I think that's accurate. He is that caliber of a player. And so to me, Hunter is the sort of guy where I want to get him in my buildings. I can't draft an athlete like this anywhere else in the draft. No, I can't even draft him next year. It's not going to exist next year. And then I'll figure out the step count later, right? I'll solve that problem in August. I just want to get the dude in April because you don't get cats like this in the draft very often.
So you add Travis Hunter to an offense with Jerry Jeudy, David Njoku, Jerome Ford in the running back, and Joe Flacco. We'll choose Joe Flacco over Kenny Pickett for the sake of this for the offense. Ben, what's the ceiling for that Browns offense? Could it be a top 15, 16 unit in football, or is that still one of the bottom dwellers?
I think that's a reach for it to be a overall in the season above average offense. That's going to be an offense that has peak games, that has spike games, right? If you think about just Jerry Jeudy's time with the Browns, right? There's those games where he vanishes, and then there's those games where it's like 10 catches for 125 yards and 2 scores, right? Like I remember that Broncos game, right? That primetime game. Judy's always been a little bit of a mercurial player like that. So if he's your primary guy, I love a David Njoku. I think Njoku is one of the more underrated players in the NFL. He also is a guy who a little bit more has his spike weeks as opposed to being like a consistent, 6 catches, stick mover sort of a guy. So you're going to have a few games of Browns offense where the line is healthy and Flacco is on, and we're able to put up some points against our AFC North contenders, right? Always play those close games. But on a week-to-week basis, there's just not enough to fear with Flacco in the backfield. I think Ford in that running game, especially, again, the line stays healthy, a little bit scarier, but if that line deals with injury again, you don't scare me too much on 1st and 10 with the running game. And so now it's all on Jeudy, a rookie receiver, and Travis Hunter, and Njoku, and Joe Flacco to beat me through the air. Just on the caliber of NFL offenses, they're getting so good these days, that doesn't clear above average to me now.
Yeah, Ben, I agree with you. I think it's unlikely the Browns would be a top half offense. But I think it's important. So often we're obsessed with getting the highest draft pick, and at some point when you've done so much losing as a franchise, I think it's good to have, especially if you're going to draft a quarterback in the second round, and hope that guy's the future. We'll see. Mm-hmm. But I think at some point you got to start winning and building a winning culture in the locker room. And Joe Flacco, if nothing else, gives them a better floor and a level of professionalism and legitimacy to the offense where, yeah, I'm with you. They're not going to be top 16, but they won't be one of the 5 worst offenses in the NFL either. They'll be a competitive offense, and so they'll be a competitive team. Not a playoff team probably, but a competitive team where they're not picking first or second again next year probably.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I think it'd be hard for Stefanski to coach a bottom 5 offense. I think it takes what you've gotten from Deshaun Watson over the course of his time in Cleveland for that to happen. And that's like, legitimately bottom tier quarterback play. And then you also have a defense that, the 23 season, okay, true dominance. The 2024 season, okay, we can't ask the defense to just solve the whole problem for us, right? Like they were put in so many bad positions, and you had some regression from some key players. You had to deal with some injury in the second level, whatever. But that defense can still win you games, right? If you're getting somewhere between the 2023 season and the 2024 season level of play. That's also going to get a few notches in your win column. I agree with you on the culture thing in a big way, especially when it comes to that second-round quarterback. If you want to develop that guy, you need to have an offensive infrastructure that can withstand some of his ups and downs. If it's all on him right away to elevate the team, he's going to crumble under that pressure, right? But if you have Jeudy, Hunter, and Njoku saying, hey, if you just kind of point and shoot, we can solve this problem for you, that takes a load off the guy, right? If you get healthy seasons along the offensive line, you get to some of those previous levels of Browns offensive line play, that running game wakes up a little bit, that helps develop the guy because you can live with his ups and downs a little bit more as he adjusts to NFL play. So it is big to kind of start to establish, even if it's like, okay, we're not going to make the playoffs this year, but we have a functional system on offense. We have a culture of, all right, guys are doing their jobs now. It helps foster the development in the young guy.
You mentioned Deshaun Watson, Ben, and I'm just curious. We've talked at length too much about Deshaun Watson since he's come to Cleveland. It happened to be the same year this show started. As someone who's not in Cleveland and covers the league as a whole, do you ever anticipate Deshaun Watson playing in the NFL again?
No.
Easy enough. No,
it is a pretty easy answer.
He's not here. I just wanted to ask an honest opinion.
I don't know why we're even asking this question anymore. There's no chance he's going to play. Ben, during the like September, August to February, our panel is like 4 people, and some of us are here, myself included, every day. And this time of year, we pare down to 3, and each of us get like a couple of days off. And the other day, they had this conversation.
Well, ESPN wrote the article. It was an ESPN article. Ben works for ESPN.
Job by ESPN, yeah. Ben. I don't know who wrote it.
It was Daniel Oyefusi who works with us.
Yeah.
Listen, there's no way on earth. Why would anybody bring in Deshaun Watson, who sucks and has baggage? You can't have both.
I asked the question. He said no. We can move on. It was easy enough.
I wasn't insulted by the question at all. I just think it's that plain and simple. I
didn't expect a longer
I
answer.
wasn't trying to make your life tough. I just think anybody Deshaun Watson? No shot, 0% chance. My jaw would hit the floor if another team ever is like, yeah, let's get this guy in the building. I would be stunned.
Yeah,
We're all on the same page. He worked for the outlet that put the article. I just wanted to ask a smart football mind what he thought.
I'm more annoyed by Tyvis the other day saying, yeah, he's gonna, he'll get a workout. Why would a team give him a workout? You don't want to deal with that.
I'm not Tyvis. Benjamin's not Tyvis.
Right.
Like you're coming at us like we said something.
Oh, I'm
here.
coming at you, not him.
There's no upside.
He said no, but
Dustin, please change the subject.
All right, go ahead.
This is the easiest problem I've ever caused in my life. Just one word, and I got it done. That's great.
One word.
Is Kevin Stefanski safe for the Browns no matter what this year?
No, I don't think so. Just because you eventually run out of real estate, you run out of leash, right? I think that Stefanski is generally a good coach. I like what he does on offense. I like the way that he's tried to solve problems as they've had personnel change, quarterbacking changes, running back changes. They've messed around with the scheme to try to make things work for Deshaun. I think generally he has a sharp offensive mind. At some point, you just run out of highway, right? Of runway to give a guy, another chance, especially when, as ownership, I imagine the further you get away from the Deshaun Watson decision, the more you're going to want to just completely clean house so that way you can put it to bed as best as possible, right? So, Haslam was very clearly like, all right, the Deshaun thing was a mistake. That was terrible. That was dumb, whatever. Stefanski, Barry, they get another season. It's not that good. Okay, fire them both, bring in new guys. Then you get to sit at that press conference at 26, be like, it's a new era of Browns football, which no one will believe. But you get to say it, and it makes you feel better as the owner, what have you. And so I do think that they're running out of runway. There's stuff they can do to kind of save that job this year. I certainly can. They certainly can. Because again, I think good coach and a sharp general manager. But it's a thin ask right now, just because of how long they've been there and how poor the team has been under their purview.
Ben, do you think Johnny Manziel will ever play another game in the NFL?
He's like 40 years old, dude.
No,
fun to watch, Johnny.
Seriously, if the Browns do take the quarterback at 33 or they trade up, who do you like the most of these guys being talked about in that range?
Yeah, I like Shuck, the kid out of Louisville. Now, he's 25 with an injury history, so you have to be cognizant of the red flags, right? He only got good very late in his career because he was dealing with a substantial amount of injury. Only started playing well when he was 4 years older than his contenders. Those are, that's the same thing Kenny Pickett did when he was at Pitt. Like, late bloomer. And late bloomers typically are guys who weren't that good enough to bloom until they got like a ton more experience than everybody else. So there are certainly red flags. But if you look at NFL-style passing concepts, the deep play action stuff, like he has the ability to kind of execute the concepts that are quite common to the base Stefanski offense. Think about that 2019 Baker Mayfield menu of all those rollouts and those heavy personnel, the tight end sets, like that sort of thing you'd want to give Shuck. He's good to solve problems with this. We can design a tricky offense around that. Those two are my preferred guys. Not as big on a Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, but I'd get it.
Ben, not a Browns-related question, but we had a discussion earlier on today's show about how analytics may have gone a little too far. How we got away from not looking at advanced numbers to now looking at every advanced number humanly possible, and it's kind of taking some of the human element out. When you do your writing, I know you like using advanced analytics and numbers, and you do a great job with that, but do you ever find a point where you're using numbers that are there to help a case, but you don't necessarily truly – how do you balance analyzing football using the numbers but also using the eye test and the people test?
Yeah, so there's a fundamental truth of statistics in football, which is that counting stats are not very good. Touchdowns, passing touchdowns for a quarterback is just not helpful, right? It doesn't tell me how good the quarterback is. It tells me the way that the offensive coordinator likes to call the game. It tells me how often they might have been trailing and they needed to put points back on the board. It tells me how good the wide receiver might have been at back shoulder fades and also how good the quarterback is. But generally, it just doesn't capture what we need it to capture. So most of the good stats in football, from the ones that are outside facing, one that we use in the media, are those that try to contextualize our counting stats. When we talk about like expected points added, big fancy name, EPA, we are basically saying yards adjusted for situation. We're saying 9 yards on 3rd and 7 is better than 9 yards on 3rd and 11. That's all we're saying with EPA. That's very handy. It's very helpful. We should all use that and integrate that. That's going to help us understand who's good a lot more accurately than counting stats will. Once you go beyond that, and you start saying like, all right, this is the, a full teams level adjustment, EPA on play action, on second down, linebackers moving, you've lost the thread because the football and each individual football play is so highly contextualized with 22 players on the field. It is so hyper specific to how each guy was aligned and which foot was in front of the other, where their weight was, what the call was, what down is the defensive coordinator trying to get to, what trick is the offensive coordinator trying to play. We lose far too much context when we try to go beyond simply let's adjust yards for situation, let's adjust completion percentage for depth of target, let's adjust yards per carry to how well the line blocked the play. And so there's a hard cap on what stats can do in football relative to some of the stats in baseball and in soccer because of the discrete nature of plays. Because each play is its own little war on 1st and 10. It brings you to a 2nd and 7. Then there's a whole separate war that happens on 2nd and 7, and so on and so forth. So you have to be very cautious of using plays just to give, using stats just to give a little bit of additional context and then trying to go no further. That's always how it's going to have to be in football.
Yeah.
Hey, Belichick's at North Carolina. Does he stay there? Does he come back to the NFL ever, you think? Will he ever coach in the NFL again?
So I think it's possible. I think it's more likely than a lot of people are giving it credit for right now. Like I would say, 30% chance he's coaching in the NFL next year. I think most people are at 10, 15.
Yeah.
The issue is with every year that goes by, Belichick loses owners, right? Because the owners right now who are kind of interested in him are the old heads, right? Mm-hmm. Arthur Blank with the Falcons. You've heard Jerry Jones talk about it with the Cowboys, right? Those older owners are the ones who are still worship at the altar of Belichick. They still remember what he was. And so those are the guys who are kind of more willing to, you think, potentially give him another shot. The old owners, the new money, you just don't hear them talk about Belichick because they aren't as, still awed by what he did, right, in the early 2000s and into the 2010s. And so if it's not this year, like after the season for UNC, it becomes a little less likely. And if it's not after 2 seasons, it becomes a lot more unlikely, right? It really diminishes fast because he needs these older owners who are still going to be in control and still have power for the next 5-6 years. He needs those guys to be the ones to make the decision. And so if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. I think there's a decent shot, but we'll see. I'm very interested to see how this year goes for UNC. You could convince me 2-11. You could convince me 11-2, and anything in between.
But here's the important question. Will his teenage girlfriend be the GM of the team that hires him?
I saw there was a piece about that yesterday at The Athletic. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. I'm very about how involved she is. I'm fascinated. I think that
weird.
Listen, I'll put it to you this way. I think someone who's not a football operations person having a highly outsized impact on a team, both the college and NFL level, is probably a lot more common than we hear about, but we get to hear about this one because it's Bill Belichick's 24-year-old girlfriend, and that's very funny to me.
Ben, I got one last one. This is Browns related. Jerry Jeudy had a breakout season last year here in Cleveland, by far the best of his career. Was that the peak of Jerry Jeudy, or do you think he can get even better?
I think that's about the peak. Jeudy is a very tricky player for me. I remember I didn't love him coming out of Alabama, and then with the Broncos, he's going to do this. It's your breakout. Finally, this. And he gets to Cleveland, and the thing about the environment in Cleveland where he broke out last year is that there was just no competition for targets. There's just none. Right? Amari Cooper is gone. Elijah Moore hasn't done it. Been what we wanted to be. Cedric Tillman had his good couple of games, then he's absent. David Njoku misses some time. It's all got to be Jerry, and that's where Jerry's at his best. Right? Where it's just like, the ball's going to Jerry. Jerry's the first read. Just run any route you want, brother. Do your 10 release moves. Get into the slant 5 minutes late, but we're going to throw it to you anyway because you're our only option. That's where Judy's going to be at his best. You don't get that sort of environment on healthy teams. On healthy teams, there's 3 other guys who deserve the ball, and you're not always going to be the primary guy. You have to be on time in your route. You have to be active on the backside. You have to make tougher catches through contact, and just that's never where he's been strong. Alabama and then into Denver. And so I think what we saw last year, where he kind of thrives in an environment where just the offense is Judy-centric. It revolves around him, the passing game. That's where he's going to be at his best. I'm very interested to see if the good year he had last year will help him, be more willing to integrate when he kind of more so becomes wide receiver 2, which I would imagine would be the case if they do take Hunter and they play him at wide receiver, or if he gets frustrated. We'll see. And so to me, that last season was the peak. But I've always struggled understanding completely how good Jerry Jeudy can be and where he's best and whatever. So he's an interesting player to watch in 25 for sure.
Ben, on a scale of 1 to 10, how insane would it be that unnamed people wanted to have a conversation about him being an All-Pro last year?
8. There's so many good receivers. This is the problem, right? Like I was like, again, the counting stats We're excellent. Absolutely. You go look at yards per route run, which is how we adjust for receiving yards. Say, okay, how many opportunities did you get? How many more routes did you get to run than Ladd McConkey on the Chargers, who run the football way more? A.J. Brown on the Eagles, who the Eagles lead in the second half, so they don't need to pass the football. You adjust yards for route run, Jerry Jeudy's counting stats start to look a lot more, mundane.
right.
Now, obviously, in the history of All-Pro, we've never given the award out for yards per route run. We used to give it out for yards. That's all we had. And so I understand the argument, but yeah, there's way too many good receivers for me to feel like, oh, Jerry Jeudy's got to get his name in the All-Pro conversation.
Ben, I appreciate that. You basically just said everybody but me is an idiot on this show. Thank you.
Yeah. That was my objective coming in. So I feel good.
Thanks,
we
Ben.
appreciate it,
Thanks,
Ben.
Ben.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Take
Ben.
care, fellas. You'll be well.
Ben said you guys are all an 8. Well, Dustin wasn't here, so I can't throw him under the bus.
He got a vote, which means he was in the conversation, which means I was right.
No, he never belonged in a conversation.
He got a vote, meaning he was in the conversation.
Well, then
that is literally an unchangeable fact of this argument.
And what that meant is whoever gave him that vote should have been fired. I mean, that's an unbelievable.
That is an irrelevant part of this.
No, it's
the
not.
fact
He was
of the
not
matter
in
is
the
he got a
conversation.
vote.
He was not legitimately in
He
the
got a vote,
conversation.
Bo.
He was a fraud, nice player, not a Pro Bowl caliber. Not an All-Pro caliber player.
Does he lead the team in targets next year?
Not if Travis Hunter's here. I don't think.
We'll find
I don't
out.
know. All right, Anthony.
All right, guys, before we do Super Chats today, they're brought to you by Living for We. Gun violence is an epidemic. It's the leading cause of death for teenagers. On this season of Living for We, we're asking what can be done to end the cycles of violence in cities like Cleveland, where the shooters value their reputation over their own lives and see innocent bystanders as collateral damage. Living for We is more than just a podcast. It's a resource for communities tired of chaos and ready to build peace. Living for We tells real stories of those affected and solutions from change makers in the community, the family, the parents, the victims, and everything in between. The mission is simple: empower communities to create safer neighborhoods free from gun violence by highlighting local heroes, connecting resources and solutions, and building bridges through honest, community-driven dialogue. Join hosts Marlene Harris-Taylor and Maisha Watkins every Tuesday for a new episode for Living for We. Keep your head up. You can find this award-winning show wherever you get your podcasts, and you can watch full episodes by searching for Living for We on YouTube.